Hello everybody, AK here. Today I'm going to be reviewing Survivor IO. If you've been watching my channel, you'll know that I've already done a video on this game as part of my first impression series, which is a series where I take a look at the game and form an opinion on it based on my initial reactions. In that video, I basically said Survivor IO was a fun little time killer with basic gameplay that's so easy to understand your grandma could hop on and have fun with this game. I also said that it would get stale pretty soon, and it wasn't something I would personally choose over other games like Clash Royale, and it's something I would play when I had literally nothing else to do. Well, I'm about to eat my words because I've been playing Survivor IO a lot in the past week, like too much. I'm currently serving in the army, and the other day I had a 16-kilometer route march carrying a 19-kilogram load that ended at 4 a.m. And when I got back from that, instead of sleeping or resting, I hopped in this game. If that's not an indication that I'm addicted, I don't know what is. What I'm trying to say is, this game is a lot better than I previously thought, so I figured it's worth making a more in depth review about. So, what is Survivor IO? For those of you who didn't watch my previous video about this game, two things. One, go watch it. Two, you're probably wondering what this game is about. It's a pretty basic concept, it's a zombie apocalypse, and you gotta fight back. Nothing we haven't seen before. So, what makes this game so special? Why did this game get a million downloads and a 4.9 star rating? That's pretty insane, guys. Well, there's a couple big reasons. So, something unique about Survivor IO is the sheer number of enemies on screen. Now, other games can have, maybe a dozen enemies on screen, or 100 if you're lucky, which, or well, technically unlucky, I guess. In Survivor IO, there can be literally over 1,000 enemies on screen at a time. Kind of reminds me of Dead Rising, if you guys remember that game. Man, I remember being a kid and watching Vanos Gaming and H2O Delirious playing Dead Rising. Where does the time go? Those were those were the golden years. Anyway, back to review. Survivor IO also has this feature of just an insane number of enemies on screen at a time, and this absolute over the topness. Is that a phrase? Over the topness? Yeah, I'm making it a phrase. This absolute over the topness helps to make the game special. Another thing that makes the game special is its gameplay. Excuse me. The gameplay in Survivor IO is incredibly basic, which I feel is a huge driving factor in its success. Because basic gameplay means anybody, from grown adults to little kids to your pet hamster, can play this game. That gives it a bigger potential player base. Now, let's talk about the gameplay. So, how's the gameplay? You fight through hordes of zombies, bugs, and other monsters to get to the end of a chapter. There's 30 chapters in the game as of present. I'm sure they'll add more. At the time you're watching this video, there might be 50 for all I know. But right now, there's 30. Now, it takes 15 minutes to clear a chapter, and every 5 minutes, there'll be a boss battle. But some chapters do have bosses more frequently. For instance, chapter 3 has bosses every 2 minutes, which, to be honest, I prefer. Now, most of the time, there are already a bunch of enemies on screen. Like, at any given point, there's probably 20 to 30 minimum. But every now and then, there'll be an event known as Zombies Incoming. During this event, the spawn rate of enemies increases a massive amount, and there can be literally 1,000 on them at screen at once. And in these situations, if you're not upgraded enough, if you don't have the right weapons, or you just don't have the skill, you're gonna die. You gotta step it up to stay alive. So this game gives you a variety of ways to fight your way through the monster horde. There's three main things: your starting weapon, weapon skills, and utilities. So your starting weapon is, believe it or not, the weapon you start with. It's what you bring to the battlefield, and it's your most basic way to fight back. So starting weapons can include, baseball bats, guns, and kunais, which are like, a little Japanese knife thingy. Ooh, excuse me. Sore throat. Whew. Now, weapon skills are weapons you get an upgrade while you play through the actual chapter. They're not permanent, unlike the starting weapon, and they will reset when you go to another chapter, or when you restart the chapter because you died because you suck. Now, my personal favorite weapon skill is the force field, which is actually what you're seeing on screen now. That little green thing, man, I just love it. I love it to death. It's the best weapon skill in my personal opinion. And the third thing is the supplies, or well, utilities as I like to call them. I don't know why I like to call them utilities. I don't know. I'm weird like that. Now, these supplies give passive effects such as health increase, a reduction in damage taken from enemies, or increase in bullet speed. There's also an evolution path where you can increase your attack and health, among other things. Now, defeated monsters drop these little orbs known as biofuel. And biofuel is basically how you level up your weapon skills and your supplies. There are also mini bosses and, well, regular bosses in the game that drop chests. And when you pick up these chests, they give you a random upgrade. Now, when the boss battles start, every enemy will die and you'll be sealed into a small area with the boss. And only upon defeating the boss will the arena disappear and enemies start spawning again. Which, honestly, in my personal opinion, I wouldn't mind if enemies spawned while we were fighting the boss. I think that would add another layer of complexity to the boss fights because, as I'll go further in depth later, the bosses in this game aren't very fun, guys. It's one of the big flaws of this game. But for now, let's talk about the pros of Survivor IO. Now, as I already mentioned earlier, the simple gameplay and the amount of enemies on screen are two big pros to this game. But there are a couple others. So one is the variety of cool skills, equipment, and weapons. So the weapons in this game and the skills in this game are very cool. You've got drones that fire hundreds of rockets, orbs that spin around and smash everything to pieces, a giant drill flying around the screen, ripping through people, Molotovs, force fields, and a good old-fashioned baseball bat. Not to mention, you do have armor, which you can't see it right now because you gotta equip it. But all of this stuff is vital to action games. Interesting and varied weapon and equipment design. That's what's important. Imagine if Call of Duty only had a pistol, nothing else. No assault rifles, no shotguns, no grenades, nothing, just a pistol. And you could even customize that pistol. Would it be fun? No, of course it wouldn't be fun. I wouldn't even play the game if it was like that. So I'm happy to report that the weapons of Survivor IO are awesome. There are a lot of them and they can be upgraded. And another pro of Survivor IO is the maps. There are 30 maps. There's one per chapter. And I guarantee there's more to come. Just like with weapons, map variation is also vital to success. Playing on the same map again and again and again is going to get boring. And thankfully, you won't have to do that with this game. I remember an old zombie game I used to play way back in the day. Like years back. It was called Gunmaster 3 Zombie Slayer. And it had the most in-depth weapon customization I have ever seen in a mobile game. It's actually still up, I believe. Like, I think you can still get it on the Play Store. But you should go check it yourself. I don't know if it's available on the App Store or not. I know it's available on the Play Store. Now, like I said, it had such in-depth weapon customization. You can download the game and see for yourself. But it only had one map. This killed the game for me. I don't want to spend hours in the same place. I already do that in the army, just sitting in one place, waiting. It's boring. I don't want to do that when I play video games too. Are you kidding me? So another pro is the game saving. Let's say, you're almost at the final boss fight in a session. Your blood is pumping, your adrenaline is running, and you're praying to every deity you can think of to make it out of this horde of monsters and beat the stage. And suddenly your mom's calling you down, saying you gotta come with her to the grocery store. Now you can't just pause the game the whole time, and you don't want to play while you're, out walking around, because that's just asking for an accident to happen. But with Survivor IO, you don't need to pause, you don't need to do anything stupid. You can just exit the game. And when you come back, it'll put you exactly where you were when you previously left. Now, enemy placement will be different, but you'll have all your stuff. You'll have saved all your progress so far in the stage. And that's a huge boost to quality of life. Like that's such a great feature, especially when you consider the fact that other survival games, for instance Call of Duty Zombies, which is one of the most popular survival games like that I can think of off the top of my head, doesn't have this. Like in Call of Duty Zombies, if you're at round 35 and you're like, man, I want to just stop and come back later, you can't. You've either just got to leave the game on, like just pause it and leave it on, which I'm not even 100% sure if it can pause. I don't think it can pause, actually. Or, you just turn it off and you lose all your progress, which sucks. I don't want to lose my progress. Like, I just want to take a couple hours away for a breather. I want to continue. And the fact that you can do that with Survivor IO, that's pretty good. Now, let's talk about some cons of Survivor IO because, well, let's face it, guys, no game is perfect. There's no game out there that's perfect. You can't name a perfect game. Now, a big flaw in Survivor IO, in my opinion, is enemy design. The enemies of Survivor IO just aren't very cool looking. I mean, not all of them, granted, but most of them are pretty lame. I'm sorry for saying that, but it's the truth. So something I think games should adhere to, like a basic rule. A basic rule I think games should adhere to is basic gameplay, complex design. So the actual game should be simple to play without, millions of small little annoying things to do. But the design shouldn't be basic. The design of the world shouldn't be simple to look at. Let's look at a game like Dark Souls. Dark Souls captures this idea perfectly. The gameplay is basic. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Dark Souls is easy. Simple to learn, hard to master. So the gameplay is basic, but the world isn't. The environment, the enemies, the bosses are crafted beautifully, mesmerizing to look at. The bosses, they got attacks that can rain down fire from the sky, summon spikes from the earth, or just do a spinneroonie and slice you in half. But no matter how visually stunning any attack is or any enemy is, the concept is the same. Roll and attack. Dodge and counter. Survivor IO nails the basic gameplay, but sadly it also gets the basic design, which just isn't the way. The design of the enemies just falls flat for me. Don't get me wrong, like I said earlier, it's not all bad. Boss designs, a lot of the bosses are pretty cool looking, and a couple of the basic enemies are decent looking too. But overall, I'd rate enemy design a 6 out of 10. It's just not my cup of tea. Alright, another con is the bosses. Now, I said the bosses were cool looking, and I stand by that, but the bosses in this game are pushovers. They're so easy. None of them pose a real challenge. None of them. They don't, like, you can't even call them bosses, They're just regular enemies with a bigger health pool. There's nothing that makes them special, and they're not even that difficult, which is a shame because, like I said, they're some of the cooler looking enemies. I wish they made the bosses, more difficult, which is kind of a strange thing to ask. I don't think there's a lot of people asking to make enemies more difficult, but here I am. Alright, and that's actually all the cons that I have with Survivor IO, which should kind of tell you that this game is decent. You know what I'm saying? Like, only two problems. You know? Like, meanwhile, have uh, other games have so many problems. Sorry, I got lost for a second. I was just thinking about how bad games are getting these days. It's kind of sad. All right, and now let's get into some nitpicks. So, nitpicks are things that I would like them to do, but I'm okay if they don't. So, one thing I would like them to do, or improve on rather, is the over the topness of the game. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, like I said earlier, the game is over the top because of the number of enemies you can have on screen, like thousands of them, right? But something I think they could improve on is when you defeat the enemies. I think they could go even harder than they currently do in terms of over the topness by making the monsters explode into a pool of blood, or spray their body parts around when they die. There's a game called Alien Shooter, which is something I also plan on doing a review on, where when you kill enemies, their bodies don't disappear, right? They don't. And that game also has a bunch of enemies on screen. Not as many as Survivor IO, but a decent amount, like a few hundreds. So by the time you're done, you're standing up to your waist in just, all kinds of alien blood and guts. And imagine something like that with this game with like 50,000 enemies per stage. Imagine if their bodies disappear by the end and you're just standing around in just all of this remnants and ashes, You'd feel like Doom Guy. But currently when you defeat enemies, they just, fizzle away. If you're going to make an over the top game, don't give it 100%. Give it 200%. Just go absolutely nuts. And really, that's my only nitpick with the game. That's just something I wish they would do, but I understand why they don't, because system requirements. If you do something like that and you don't despawn the bodies, it may slow down phones. It may cause lag, and so I understand why they wouldn't do it, but I wish they had the option to, at least. So now for my review. Overall, I give the game an 8 out of 10. It's very fun and I highly recommend it. And not to mention, the game is very early in its life, is something you gotta remember, This is a new game. No doubt it's just gonna keep improving, it's gonna keep getting better, they're gonna keep adding weapons and all bosses and stages and just improve. I look forward to the future of this game. I know for a fact it's already good and it's just going to get better, which is why I think you guys should get in on it now and just enjoy the ride with me. That's that for this video. I hope you guys enjoy, and I hope you guys play Survivor IO, because like I said, it's a fun game and I'd like to see you there. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you want to, comment if you like to. Goodbye. And you know what? I was gonna stop the recording, but let me see if I can beat this boss real quick. I know I said that the bosses are really easy in this game, and you're probably wondering why I'm dying here. Oh, yeah, I just beat him. But yeah, you're probably wondering why I almost died there, and it's because I'm playing without looking at the screen. Anyway, that's the end of this video. Which actually, I'm glad it coincided perfectly with the end of the chapter. I didn't even plan that. But anyway, yeah, that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. AK out.